When Williams fell from the top of the Formula One tree at the end of the 1990s, it was only meant to be a temporary absence. It had lost the works Renault engines that powered it to championship success with Nigel Mansell, Alain Prost, Damon Hill and Jacques Villeneuve, but it already knew it had BMW coming in for 2000. The good times were right around the corner, but in the end a partnership that promised so much ended with a winless final season and BMW packing its bags at the end of 2005 to take over another team. So how did it all go so wrong? Williams was on the back foot before it even had BMW engines powering its cars. Heavy financial losses for the manufacturer meant there was a management change at the very top of the company, and the new bosses found themselves overseeing an expensive F1 program at a time when they could do without the extra costs. Longtime BMW engine boss Paul Roche, who'd led the company's 1980s success with Brabham and helped convince the board to return to F1 with Williams, was also ushered aside and into retirement, leaving ambitious corporate player Mario Tyson in charge of the project, initially alongside Gerhard Berger. That meant the top end of the BMW side of the equation looked very different to what Williams was expecting when the deal was first signed, and this brought with it additional pressure. Solid foundations were laid in BMW's comeback year of 2000. Williams established itself as the best of the rest behind Ferrari and McLaren, although it hadn't threatened them for victories. The first engine was surprisingly conservative, featuring similar dimensions and V-angle to the Renault engines Williams was used to. There was a big focus on cooling and reliability, which brought with it extra weight. Tyson explained that BMW wanted to go from 0 to 90% in that first year, warning that pushing too hard in the beginning with a more powerful but less reliable engine would have slowed BMW's rate of learning. BMW's methodical approach was somewhat at odds with the dynamic way Williams went about its racing, but at this stage any tension between the two sides was manageable. That tension ramped up in 2001 when BMW produced the best engine in F1 with a much more ambitious design. The P81 motor was smaller, lighter, and had 100 horsepower more than its predecessor. A lot of that progress was credited to Andy Cowell, now very well known for his work overseeing Mercedes' high-performance powertrains division that has produced so much success. The engine was enough to turn Williams back into winners for the first time since 1997, but it was still third in the championship. Crucially, that meant it was still behind Mercedes, which increased the corporate pressure coming from Germany. BMW felt it was holding up its end of the bargain by this stage, but it was starting to wonder about Williams' contribution to the partnership. What BMW hadn't banked on when it signed up with Williams was the impact that losing Adrian Newey at the end of 1996 would have. Newey left late enough for Villeneuve's 97 title-winning car to still carry his fingerprints, even if he didn't quite get to finish the design. But Williams struggled with its development direction through that year, and perhaps that was the first sign that without the technical genius behind its 1990s success, it was at risk of falling behind as F1 moved into the 21st century. BMW made little secret of the fact that having gone from podium finisher to race winner over its first two seasons, expectations were on the rise. But by 2002, when Williams moved ahead of McLaren into second place but everyone was trounced by Ferrari, there was a growing understanding that the best engines on the grid were powering pretty average cars. 2003 was the championship that got away. Rule changes to peg back Ferrari's dominance had worked, and Williams and McLaren were in the hunt throughout the season. At times, the combination of Williams, BMW and its Michelin tyres was the strongest on the grid. During the middle of the year, Williams won 4 out of 6 races with one Pablo Montoya and Ralf Schumacher. With 3 races to go, Montoya was a point behind Michael Schumacher, and he'd outscored him by 40 to 18 over the previous 5 races. Then the tyre rules were clarified ahead of the Italian Grand Prix. The suggestion was that Michelin had found a way to make its tyre contact patch wider than was allowed by the rules, giving its teams an advantage over the Bridgestone-shod Ferraris. Following the change, Ferrari was back on the pace, winning the final 3 races of the year. Although Montoya looks back on a controversial drive-through penalty at Indianapolis and breaking down from the lead at Suzuka as the main things that cost him a title shot. Williams clearly had its shortcomings during the early part of the 2000s, but it was also unfortunate that its BMW partnership coincided with Ferrari creating one of the most dominant teams in F1 history. Schumacher and Ferrari took a then unprecedented run of 5 consecutive championships from 2000 to 2004. Given how Williams compared to McLaren during this time, winning more races and scoring more points between 2001 and 2004, this period wasn't a total failure. But Ferrari's success, plus the emergence of Renault and BAR Honda just as Williams dropped the ball with its radical walrus-nosed 2004 design, created that impression. As BMW grew frustrated, it wanted greater influence. But Williams resisted this, both on the technical side and by refusing to let BMW buy into the team. While the team was known as BMW Williams during this time, that was through a title sponsorship deal rather than BMW owning a stake. As the relationship deteriorated further during a disappointing start to 2005, BMW spotted an opportunity to turn engine supply talks with Sauber into something more. Against a backdrop of Frank Williams saying the BMW relationship had been hostile for too long, the manufacturer announced in the summer of 2005 it was taking over Sauber. At the time, Tyson declared success can only be achieved with a fully integrated team, a clear swipe at Williams for resisting BMW's advances. But while the decision not to sell clearly affected Williams' competitiveness in the years that followed, the fact BMW pulled out of F1 abruptly at the end of 2009, leaving Sauber on the brink of disappearing from the grid, suggests Williams could have found itself in a similar situation had it been willing to sell up. Success might have come quicker for BMW had it been able to take over Williams, as buying Sauber meant it was starting from a lower base. Championship success with Williams in the late 2000s might have prevented that 2009 departure, just like a 2003 title with Montoya could have repaired a lot of the damage and kept the relationship going in the first place. Why do you think the BMW Williams partnership failed? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a thing from the race.